Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Allie.
And I'm back from my secret mission, Allie.
Yeah,
I'm laughing because Allie texted me. I didn't know if I could say what you were doing, so I said that you were on a secret mission, and I haven't stopped laughing about it.
I was like, I'm not going to tell people because I don't want you mad at me if I said something that I shouldn't. But it was a very nice thing that you were doing. So, Sarah, would you like to tell the people, because you said we can, what you were doing while I had Mike fill in?
Well, for those who can see on video, I have a ring on my finger. I got married.
Woo!
It was amazing. It was the best day ever. Not to be cheesy and cliche, but it certainly was. And then the return back to work has been terrible. To say the least. Just awful. But I'm happy to be here and talking about this. This is the reprieve from the steep return, reality smacking me in the face back to work after the glorious Cloud9 happiness.
But congratulations. We're so happy for you, and I'm so glad that you did it, and it all went well, and now I can be relieved of my burden of your secret that I was like...
Which, for the record, it wasn't a secret, but Allie was being very kind, and they knew that, I guess I'd never said, you can tell everybody. Well, they'd never asked, and I'd never said it, and so they assumed, they were just like, we're going to err on the side of caution and not say anything, which was very sweet. But here I am. So let's get into the football of it all, because there's a lot to discuss, Allie. We're going to talk international break. So much happened. We're going to review international break that has ended. We're going to preview the upcoming NWSL season that starts this weekend. And we've got a couple of very key kind of like news points that we're excited to talk about. So we got a packed episode.
Yeah, everything happened in a week. I was like, I don't understand. Like, why does it always happen so quickly and like so compact?
It's always the week that I try to take off also. So let's get into it, because you and Mike last week mentioned what was going on with the Africa Cup of Nations, which is officially postponed. Last week, you'd mentioned that it looked like maybe it would be postponed. It has officially been postponed. I feel like we need to give a little bit of a backstory here and also just generally talk about this, because there was an article on ESPN and the headline was, it was a direct quote, and it's just, quote, "It's actually embarrassing." And unfortunately, I totally agree.
But you could see it a mile off. So like Morocco, who are supposed to be hosting, were dropping hints being like, oh, we don't know if we've got the infrastructure. We don't know if we've got the volunteers that we have, because they've literally just hosted the men's Africa Cup of Nations. Don't think we've got the infrastructure. We don't think we've got the volunteers. We don't know if we can do it. South Africa offered to step in, but geographically, that is a nightmare, because Morocco is at the very top of the continent and South Africa, hence the name, is at the very bottom of the continent. So that would have been a whole geographical nightmare. The whole tournament is now cancelled. It's now postponed.
It's not cancelled. It's postponed.
Well, it's postponed. It's postponed until they realize they have to play it, because that's how they get World Cup qualifying.
I was going to say, it can't be canceled for many reasons, including the fact that this is World Cup qualifying. They have also said that it's going to be played after the Men's World Cup. So I believe the date is July. I had the exact date in front of me and I've lost it. But they're basically saying, okay, pause. We're going to get through the Men's World Cup and then we'll circle back to this.
Why is it women's sport always has to get postponed for the men? Why? Because it's like, can you imagine if they were like, we're not going to play this until after the Women's World Cup, or, you know, for the men's tournament? They never would. It's always the women's tournament has to get postponed, and it's one of those things where it's sad but not surprising.
And while I will say, what you mentioned about it being mainly because Morocco couldn't play host, that is technically all still speculation. Like, it seems like it's the right answer, but the CAF, the federation, put out a 3-paragraph statement that was very sparse, very cautious, really didn't outline anything, like kind of sketched out the change in schedule, but really just said nothing at all, including said nothing about why this was even postponed in the first place. All of it's disappointing. All of it's upsetting, especially considering Morocco did really, really well in recent years and possibly could have also been the favorites to win the Africa Cup of Nations at home, which could have done wonders for Morocco. There's a lot of layers to this, and it's exceptionally disappointing for just so many reasons. So that's unfortunately the update on that. Anything else, Allie?
No, we're good. Now, Sarah's going to come up with me something blind because apparently now there's some rule changes that are going to be applied, and I don't know anything about these, so this is interesting.
IFAB, International Football Association Board, has apparently announced, not sure how this is really not getting any traction. Apparently, IFAB has announced that there are new football rules incoming in the 2026-2027 season that will take effect July 1st of 2026. These rules will take effect during the World Cup, the Men's World Cup, and they will be across both men's and women. So the first time we'll be seeing them are in the Men's World Cup if we are watching that, and if not, we will see them whenever you watch the women's game starting on July 1st. So let's start here. Allie, rule number one. I'm going to read it and then we're going to have reactions. Rule number one, there will be a 5-second countdown during throw-ins and goal kicks. If the ball isn't back in play after 5 seconds, the restart is handed to the opposition.
Okay, so we're trying that in the UK at the moment with the 8 seconds for the goal kick, and I can guarantee that I've only ever seen it once where they've done it. And like the crowd will count the 8 seconds, and it's a whole thing, and I can't see that being at all policed or refed because we've tried it with 8 seconds and it didn't work.
Gray area continues to come with when does that count start? And this will again just be up to the referees. I know technically it won't be, but we know realistically it will be. All right, number two. Subbed off players must leave the pitch within 10 seconds of the board being shown or the ref's signal. If they take longer, the replacement cannot enter until the next stoppage after 1 minute of play. Allie's clapping.
love this rule. I love this rule because at the moment, again, I can only go based on what we've got, is you're supposed to leave your nearest side if you're being subbed off. You're not supposed to come down to the bench. You're supposed to go nearest side and walk around. Does this happen? No. But that's what you're supposed to do. I love it because the amount of times you see, especially towards the end of a game, you see players take their sweet time to get off the pitch and then the other one comes along. So I'm like, yes, absolutely. No, I'm in favor of this 100%.
We're going to start to see a trend because all of these rules seem to just be some way to mitigate time wasting in some way. Because this next rule, when play is stopped for an on-field injury assessment, the injured player must leave the pitch and remain off for at least 1 minute once play restarts. So the part about the player who needs to leave that the player needs to leave the pitch, that's not new. It's always been if training staff comes on, you have to leave the pitch, but then you can always just like re-enter right away. Now they're saying you have to wait at least 1 minute after the play restarts and then you can re-enter. Always the image that flashes into my brain is one, I believe, from the World Cup. And it was from a while ago, but a Brazilian player was basically stretchered off in her attempts at time wasting against the U.S. women's national team. The second she got over the end line, she literally hopped off the stretcher, ran around, and came back in the game. And it was utter insanity. I don't mind this at all. I like it.
No, I love it because I'm sick of seeing players, and it happens across the board, feigning injury for whatever reason. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
If you're genuinely injured, I understand, but for the most part, you're not.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think 1 minute is a small enough penalty that it's not going to stop players from asking for athletic training assistance at all. All right, next rule. I believe this is number 4. VAR can now check incorrect second yellow cards. They can also check red or yellow cards that were given to the wrong team. In other words, that one sentence seems to be related to, like, let's say there was some kind of a fight on the field, a yellow card was awarded to one player. No, it should have been awarded to the other player, but the ref hadn't seen that first foul that was committed. It doesn't seem like you could just review pure yellow cards, simply red or yellow cards that were given to the wrong team. And wrong corner decisions can also be reversed through VAR.
So I think the biggest thing on that is the second yellow, because as things stand at the moment, you cannot appeal a second yellow that resulted into a red. If it's a straight red, you have grounds to appeal if you think your player was hard done by. If it's 2 yellows, you don't have that choice, and they have to serve a match ban or whatever it is for 2 yellows. I think it's only 1. This is big because the amount of times we have seen where players may not have deserved the second yellow, but they're on like thin ice. So I do think this is a big one. That one is a huge one.
I like it, and I like it that they're keeping it to very specific events that are very influential in the game. It's not everything, it's not every yellow, because that's insane. Okay, finally, senior international friendlies can now use up to 8 substitutions or 11 if both teams agree to that. I love it.
No, that's
No?
stupid. No, I'm so against that.
Really?
I'm
I
so
like it.
against that. No, you should not be able to change your entire team. I think that's
I
dumb.
like it.
No.
Well, 8's not that much bigger than what we already have here, so it might just
It
stick
is.
to
There's
8.
3 extra players because you have 5
It's not
at the
that many,
moment.
though.
Yes. No, I don't like it. Do not like it.
Alright.
I do
Alright.
not
Well,
like it, Sam
difference
I am. I do not like it.
but it's just in friendlies, like, this would never be in World Cup qualifying or anything
I
like
don't
that.
care. I still
Alright.
don't like it.
I like it. Let's get people time. Let's get people playing time without making them commit to an entire 90 minutes. I love it. All right, those are all of the rules. It was also noted, and if you, I think all of us probably saw what happened. At least even if you don't watch men's football, I don't watch men's football, and I saw something about Allie. You're gonna have to fill in the blank. Some player covering his mouth, definitely saying something racist.
Yes, so it was basically a player covered his mouth and was reportedly said compared a black player to a certain animal, which happens often. And but the worst bit, I mean, that was abhorrent, and it was very clear he did something because you don't cover your mouth if you're saying something less inflammatory. Was his excuse was I didn't say the racist thing. I called him the FAG word, so I was being homophobic. And I'm like, how is that better, you dumbass?
It was the whole thing just got worse and worse and worse. And then I saw something with uh, a famous coach that's very well respected who was kind of like defending the player's actions. It was all bad. But we're not here to talk about men's football. Those are the rule changes that will be implemented. Drop some comments. Tell us what you think about them. We're curious. All right, let's talk international break. Allie's oh so favorite thing. You thought you got away with it when I wasn't here last week, not talking about it. But guess what? Here we go. But we're going to kick it off with something that I actually haven't read a lot about. Allie has. So, Allie, take it away. There's something going on with the Spain and Turkey game that was supposed to be played.
I'm going to clarify this. So it's not Spain versus Turkey. It's Spain versus Ukraine in Turkey. So Spain is in the same group as England, Iceland, and Ukraine for Nations League for World Cup qualifiers. Now, England went and played Ukraine in Turkey last Tuesday. So that would be, a week and a bit when this is released. And it's a bit scary, anything in that area. And so England went over and played. And then Spain were due to play the Saturday just gone, the same place, because Ukraine, also in wartime, can't play in their own country. So they have to play in a more neutral country because they cannot play in Ukraine. Now, Spain went to UEFA and went, we don't feel safe. We don't feel like, because what's going on at the moment near Turkey, because Turkey's not in the Middle East, but near Turkey, we don't feel safe. We feel like, things could escalate. We've seen what's happened in Dubai and Qatar and Abu Dhabi. We don't feel safe. UEFA's point was, well, England just played there, and if you don't go and play there, you will not be allowed to qualify for the World Cup. We will withdraw you. You will not be allowed to have your chance to play for the World Cup. And so this went back and forth a lot between the two. And in the end, Spain did go to Turkey and played Ukraine, and I believe beat Ukraine in the game in Turkey. But the reason I wanted to bring this up was the fact that that was held over them, and the fact they went, our personal safety, we don't feel. And like, it was the Spanish FA, which we've very much criticized all the time, even went to UEFA and went, our girls don't feel safe, they don't really want to go, we backing them in there. And the UEFA's response was, well, then you can't play for the World Cup, which they are the current holders of.
Wait, it wasn't UEFA then. If this is World Cup qualifying, this had to be FIFA.
Yes and no. It's UEFA because it's still in the European qualification stages at the moment. It's in the Nations League, which is run by UEFA. So it's very complicated with all the different bodies. But at the moment, it is the European Football Federation.
I feel like we should just clip this. For anybody who says that politics and sports need to stay separate, like keep politics out of sports, whatever, clip this. It's impossible. They are one. They simply are.
Added on to all of that as well, it seems that Spain as a whole are very reticent to play in certain places. The men are due to play in the Finalissima in Qatar, and they don't want to go over there, and that's more of a direct the world is on fire situation over there. And it's interesting to see whether they will be made to go play what is essentially a friendly. So it's not really like it is a trophy, but it's a friendly at the same time.
It's something that they're not gonna really suffer if they just say, "I don't care if you say we forfeit this match, we're not gonna go." They have a little bit more autonomy in this, unfortunately. Or fortunately, sorry. Fortunately for them, unfortunately for the women. I'm not trying to send them to Qatar. Alright. So that happened throughout the course of so much happened, Allie, my goodness. Let's transition to She Believes. The worst title, but a very fun tournament. It was the USA, it was Canada, Colombia, Argentina. How did it end? The US won. They had 9 points, 3 wins in 3 games. Canada came in second with 5 points. They had 1 win, 1 loss, 1 draw. They won the penalty kick shootout in that 1 draw, which is why they have 5 points instead of 4. If you remember the rule change from this year, if it ends in a draw, goes into a penalty shootout, and then the winner of the penalty shootout gets that extra point. It didn't end up mattering because Colombia only had 3 and Argentina had 1 point. Colombia had 1 win, 2 losses, and Argentina had 1 draw and 2 losses.
I'm excited to talk about this for the sheer fact that I'm gonna be very honest with our listeners and viewers. I didn't watch anything because we couldn't, like outside of the US, you couldn't. However, what was fun for me was going on socials the day after the matches and seeing the head loss from many fans because some stuff went down in these games.
Yeah. Tell me what you saw. I'm curious what social media spit out for you.
So USA Argentina, I saw the whole Trinity Rodman of it all with the boot to the back.
It was a scary moment for a player who's had a million back injuries at a very young age.
The other one, and I think this was still the same game with Jaden Shaw, who got pulled down and then she kicked out at the opposing player, and there was a lot of debate about whether she should have been booked as well, because yes, she got fouled first, but you don't kick out, as David Beckham learnt to his detriment in the 98 World Cup. And so that was a whole thing because you had all the Americans being like, she was defending herself, and everybody else was like, yeah, but you can't do that.
Yep. It got physical.
I was going to say both teams, and then in the Colombia game, somebody pushed someone over.
Every game was physical. Argentina played physical. Canada always played physical. Colombia used to be a team that didn't play physical. And since I would say, 2 weeks ago, we covered a lot about Colombia and how I feel they've really not even just plateaued, they've just declined. And since we've seen that decline, we know that they've been leaning more and more into the physicality of it. We saw that as well in every single one of their games. I guess this transitions us. I want to talk about every team like we did in the lead up to it. But this does transition us nicely to talk about the US because Emma Hayes' main point on her press conferences after the Argentina game was basically, we need to learn how to keep our heads. And she was essentially saying, look, in a tournament, you're going to have to know how to keep your head, because if you do something stupid, that hurts us for the rest of the game. If you get a red card in the first 10 minutes of a World Cup final, we're done. If you get 2 yellows or however many yellows you can't accumulate throughout the group stage, that hurts us as well. We have to learn how to keep our heads. And we did see that growth in the US throughout these past 3 games, which was wonderful to see. And she was also very clear about, in the US, a lot of people, I think, look at the score line and say, oh, you only beat Argentina by 1 goal. You only beat Canada by 1 goal. You only beat Colombia by 1 goal. This wasn't a good performance by the US. And Emma Hayes was very clear in saying, like, a win is a win. We're going to play this like tournament football, which it is right now. You get 2 days off, you play again. You get 2 days off, you play again. And it's about learning, but mainly also just like having a short memory and going on to the next game. It's so clear that this was the inflection point for Emma Hayes to be like, and now we prep for the World Cup. It really was in every way. But I love to see it. I mean, even Trinity Rodman, I feel like we've talked on this podcast about how I think her Achilles heel has been that she can get wrapped up when in the physicality of a game when she's getting unfairly fouled, which she does a lot because she's a great player. And but then that takes her out of the game mentally, and then that hurts her team. And we've seen that in club and we've seen that in country. And I would argue that in the last game against Colombia, she didn't get mentally taken out of the game despite Colombia going in really hard, honestly, and flopping. We have to take flopping out of this game, please. Please, let's keep it out of women's soccer, you guys.
I saw again. That was the other thing that I saw on like all of the socials was the dramatic folds of like you get tapped on the shoulder and suddenly you're clutching your face like you got shot.
I mean, I love Colombia. I love Linda Caicedo. I love Lacey Santos, and I know that that's more deeply ingrained probably in their culture because their culture is much more men's soccer centric than what I have grown up in. And still, I can't. We need to keep it out of women's soccer. I cannot deal with it. But that's not what we're here to talk about, Allie.
No, I think the other thing I saw a fact was the fact that Emily Sonnet has been in every single squad for every single She Believes, and I'm like, how old am I? Emily Emily Sonnet has been in all 11 She Believes. I'm like, how old am I now?
We remember the first She Believes. Was it 11?
Yeah, that's according to the thing I saw because Sam Coffey tried to get a round of applause and Emily was like, stop it.
I do remember when they started it. I remember thinking I didn't like the name, and I remember thinking that they would eventually change it, so it's fine. And here we are. Emily Sonnet was the oldest player on the roster for the U.S. as well, if that helps you feel even older. Johannes was the youngest, by the way. She's 18, turns 19 in June. Okay, real quick before we move on from the U.S., I do want to talk very quickly about their performance and what it showed us.
Go on then. What did it show you?
A few things. Number one, well, let's start with 8 clean sheets in the last 8 games now for the U.S., including these 3 in She Believes. I think that says a lot, knowing also that there's a lot of question marks around the board here, starting with the goalkeepers. We haven't gotten even a hint. Emma Hayes has kept her cards very close to the vest, but I think that we finally got one in this tournament. To the chest?
You said vest.
Is that not the phrase?
No, it's
to the chest.
It's to the chest. Sorry, well, I don't mean to correct you like that, but I'm like, what?
Whether she was wearing a vest or not, she kept them close to the chest, which was the first time we've gotten any kind of a hint from Emma Hayes. Claudia Dickey started the first game against Argentina, but then Fallon Tullis-Joyce started the second game against Canada and the third game against Colombia. And that, to me, says a lot. Does that mean Emma Hayes is ready to name Fallon Tullis-Joyce as the number one? No. But is it at least an indication of where she's leaning in terms of who will be the number one? Yes, it does certainly mean that. We know that Emma Hayes thinks Fallon Tullis-Joyce needs to improve her foot skills. I think Tullis-Joyce did show that in this tournament, and I think her getting 2 starts says a lot about where Hayes' mind is at right now. I also think this is interesting with the 8 clean sheets because of where we're at with the back line. Naomi Girma's a lock. Emily Fox is a lock. Emily Sonnet has been a lock. However, I think it's interesting. We'll see what happens as Tiana Davidson starts to return from her big injury. Where will we go from here? So there's still some question marks, but to me, still keeping 8 clean sheets, absolutely fantastic.
The question we've always had with the US in recent years, at least, has been the midfield, because there's always been that question: do you double pivot with your 2 6s? Do you have a proper 8 and 10? And are we any closer to finding a formation that is going to work for the US specifically in that midfield?
I think the 4-3-3 is kind of where they're at right now, knowing that it's a 4-3-3 that is very flexible and kind of turns into a 4-2-3-1, if you will, on defense. It's more of a 4-3-3 on offense, though. I think what's interesting is that it has been a long time since we've seen the Horan-Lavelle midfield of one of them in the 8, one of them in the 10. And he seems to have locked onto the fact that they don't play well together, and we didn't see them starting together in this tournament. It seems like the front runners, at least the front runners who are in this camp for that number 8 role, are Johannes, Horan, and Claire Hutton. And then maybe like Lavelle, Horan. I keep saying Horan. I'm sorry. Heaps. It seems like Emma Hayes knows Heaps can play the 8 or the 10. Lavelle, Heaps, and Jaden Shaw for the 10. Also, knowing that Katerina Macario was out injured, I imagine she would also be in play for that number 10 role. We don't see many closer to knowing a key starting 3 for that midfield. Maybe it won't be a starting 3. You look at the 2019 run, and there really wasn't consistency across who was the starting 3 in that center midfield, with the exception of the number 6 role, which at the time was Julie Ertz. We have that same thing here with Sam Coffey, where she is the number 6. She will start. Who's starting in front of her? Unclear, but you have a lot of great options.
Should we briefly talk about the other? Yeah, let's briefly talk about the other teams because they interest me, specifically Canada. Because Canada, because I don't know what to do with Canada, if I'm all honest, because they have some fantastic players. They have some brief moments of brilliance, and then you look at like She Believes. They had an epic win against Colombia. They lost 1-0 to the US, and then couldn't score against Argentina, so it had to go to penalties.
I mean, Argentina are masters at that, like park the bus 5 back. So I'm not going to put too much on that. Canada, I think, are exactly where we thought they were. And they're kind of a hard watch right now because they're in a transition moment. And I think Casey Stoney's done a great job with them in that moment. We can see them evolving. We can see how much youth they have, how they're developing that talent. They were missing a ton of players due to injury as well, and a lot of young players that I think could have added to this squad. I thought that, all things considered, were they exciting to watch? No, not really for me, but you could see where they were going. And so for a team that I really didn't know what to expect coming into this, I did leave feeling more positive about them. And I think Casey Stoney knows that it's going to take a while to get there, but they're on the path. What about you with Argentina and Colombia? Because we were pretty down on Colombia 2 weeks ago when we were previewing this. And we were pretty high on Argentina also, saying that we shouldn't underestimate them. You're in the same place with Colombia?
I'm in the same place with Colombia, and I'm probably in the same place with Argentina, to be honest. Colombia, for me, the drop-off is epic because they were properly, I would say, contenders. They were up there for me with Brazil in terms of like showcasing South American football. And now it's not good football to watch. It's not good football in terms of their results. And if they can get into a competition like the World Cup, it will be interesting because it's just not great. It really isn't. Like, they had one win against Argentina and then a pretty heavy loss from Canada, as we mentioned, and like a 1-0 loss versus the US. But yeah, I'm still in the same place with Colombia in the fact that they need some more investment domestically to help them internationally. And it's just not the one.
Yeah. If you want to hear more about Colombia and why we just aren't high on them continuing to grow, go back to 2 weeks ago. We did a pretty in-depth explanation as to why we don't expect much from them, and a lot of it has to do with A, their federation, and B, their head coach, who has like no experience whatsoever. Okay, finally, Allie, England. England played not just friendlies, they played games that really mattered. Talk to me.
So, to be honest, the games went as I thought they would. It's the first games in Nations League for World Cup qualifiers. It's the point where now only the top team in the group will automatically qualify for the World Cup, and then you have to go through these random qualifiers, which in England's defense, they did do that for the Euros last time round, and we won the Euros. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We played Ukraine and Iceland. We won against Ukraine 6-1, and then we won 2-0 against Iceland. To be honest, the games went the way I thought they would. Like, the lineups were pretty similar to what I thought they would be. But the big question that came out of this is Jess Park has been phenomenal league-wise. You know, you ask any Manchester United fan and they will say that they are so glad she now plays on the red side of the city rather than the blue side. And she came in and played the Ella Toone role in the England setup and was so good, got a goal in the Ukraine game, was constantly assisting and was there with Lauren James in the Iceland goal. And the question now remains, Ella Toone's injured at the moment, but is it a lock that she's going to come back to her guaranteed starting position in the England squad when she does come back? And I honestly don't think she is.
You think she'll have to play her way back into it?
I think she's going to have to play her way back in, which
is so fair.
It's fair. And a lot of people are like, no, of course she's got it. Of course she's got it. And I'm like, the way Jess Park is playing right now, it would be so hard to deny her a starting position.
These are the moments where we don't envy Serena, Emma Hayes, anybody like that. Nope, no thank you. All right, I guess we'll see what happens. Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world. International edition.
To kick it off with Nations League Group A, and 2 games played here, and the results so far. Denmark and Sweden are topping the group with 1 win and 1 draw apiece. Italy and Serbia, however, are propping up the table with a lone point.
To Nations League Group 2, France are currently in the top spot with 2 wins out of 2. The Netherlands are just behind with a win and a draw. However, the Republic of Ireland are currently in trouble with 2 losses out of 2.
To Group 4, and Germany are also 2 for 2 in their wins and topping their group. Norway and Slovenia have 3 points apiece. However, Austria are at the bottom of the table with 0 points.
And finally, over to the Asia Cup. We have our quarterfinalists: South Korea, Australia, China, North Korea, Uzbekistan, Japan, Chinese Taipei, and Vietnam all have played their way into the quarterfinals. All quarterfinals are played the weekend of March 14th.
And we are now staying stateside. And just when you think it had just finished, it's back again. The NWSL kicks off this weekend. Do these girls ever get a break?
No, they don't. I'm sure that they were all thinking that as well. Like, what in the world? The season just ended. I guess we're restarting. And we're restarting with 2 new teams.
Woo! First off, the most exciting news is in a certain international country, which she has not specified, so Lord knows where she is.
It's literally all countries that are not the US. There's like 1 international feed.
So, international feed, you'll be able to hear the dulcet tones of one Sarah Ash, who will be on commentary on NWSL Plus for the Bay FC versus Denver. Let's hope she stays with us and doesn't get too big for her boots and's like, I'm out.
I really hope you can hear me when you tune in. Like, if you tune in on Saturday on NWSL Plus and you don't hear me, send me a text, because that's where I should be. All right, but let's do it, Allie. There's more than just that. There's 8 matchups, 16 teams, everyone plays. It's opening weekend. Let's talk about the matchups, and then let's get into maybe like the key points of the weekend that we want to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, matchups for this weekend. The first game of the new season will be the Washington Spirit versus Portland Thorns. That's always a fun game.
It'll be a fun one to kick it off. It's the only game on Friday. Amazon Prime, their Friday night games. It'll be a really fun one. And then we have, 5 games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, Allie?
Yes, we do. So on Saturday, you have Boston versus Gotham, KC Current versus Utah, Bay FC versus Denver, North Carolina versus Racing, San Diego Wave versus Houston.
And then Sunday, Orlando against Seattle and Angel City against Chicago. We mentioned 2 debuts, Allie, Boston and Denver. Denver are going to be away for the first 2 weekends of the season, and then they'll be at home for the first time week 3. Denver are set to break the single season NWSL attendance record, which was just rebroken this past year, 2025, with Bay FC at Oracle Park. Denver are now set to break it again with over 45,000 tickets sold for their first home game, which is March 28th, week 3. But the other brand new team, Boston, they're starting opening weekend at home, Allie.
They are at home with week 1 in the Gillette Stadium, and they have sold over 20,000 tickets in their first home game, which is huge for a brand new team.
Gillette Stadium, for those who don't exist in the NFL world, is where the New England Patriots play. So it is a full-on American football stadium.
I was going to say, that means nothing to me because Sarah did the notes, FYI, and I was like, okay, I don't understand why that's important, but sure.
American football stadiums are like minimum 60,000 seats. They're somewhere between 60 and 100,000 seats. So there's a lot of seats in that stadium. So I'm really hoping, obviously 20,000 is still a great number of tickets, but I'm hoping there's a big surge in this upcoming week that'll take Boston a little bit higher because there's going to be capacity for it.
And In manager roulette, the Portland Thorns have named their new head coach. Former Tottenham manager Robert Villeham will be taking over the Portland Thorns this season. Now, he did take Tottenham to the first ever FA Cup final. He also led them to finishing 11th. So it's been a bit hit or miss.
Yeah. There's a lot to say here, Allie. If I'm a Thorns fan, I'm not pleased right now. Number one, this head coach was named 10 days before your first game of the regular season. And as you just mentioned, he was fired by Tottenham last June after the 11th place finish in the league, which was, by the way, just one spot above relegation. It's currently unclear at this exact moment whether he will actually be on the sidelines when Portland plays that opening game on Friday against the Spirit because of visa things. But let's just talk about how we got here with Portland, Allie, because it's been a pretty steep decline. They won the championship in 2022, and it's just kind of been, I don't know, like inconsistent since then. They twice promoted internally to fill their head coaching role since that championship. They finished third last season despite having a lot of major absences, which was really, I mean, they looked down and out the first 2 weeks of the season. They had a bump. They stayed there. So it looks like hopefully good things can continue to happen. But you don't love when a head coach joins 10 days before the start of the regular season. And let's note, they've had plenty of time. They fired previous head coach Rob Gale November 25th. So it's been a while.
It has been a while. And like I joke about it being manager roulette, but I am sick and I mean,
Yeah.
I know we're in that space where it's like you do need experience. You can't just come into a team like your first team and things like that. But I'm sick and tired of seeing the same faces that fail at one club and then get another chance at another club where they will then and inevitably fail at that club and then move on. I'm not a fan of it. I am not a fan of it.
Wild to think that he'll be coaching in the NWSL and Casey Stoney won't be. I know she got her brand new spanking job. Like, she's got a great job. Like, Emma Hayes has already talked about how she'll never go back to coaching club because international is so much better. Casey Stoney has a great job, but like, this is kind of, it's wild. I hope he does a good job. Maybe the NWSL will suit him better than the WSL, but I agree. I feel like, unfortunately, we have this conversation so many times where it's like, I get that Portland tried. They promoted internally twice, but I don't know. I'm so sick and tired of the same old white men getting the opportunities. It's just exhausting. All right. Well, let's talk about something more fun. And let's talk about the teams we are really excited for this year, Allie. When you look at this list, there's 8 matchups, 16 teams. Who jumps off the page for you as to a team you're really excited for in 2026?
I'm intrigued to see how. So Boston's first game is against Gotham, who are the current champions. That's got to be hard. That's got to be like a hard start. Like that talk about jumping into the league in the deep end, feet first. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes because many would say Gotham squeaked their way to a title last season. I mean, some may say that. I can possibly comment. So I'm intrigued to see how that one goes. I'm also going to give it to Casey Curran because they were so good last season. They were so consistent last season and then had a fallout in the playoffs.
I agree. I agree with both of those. Casey Curran also were battling a lot of injuries last year. I'll be interested because they've traded Claire Hutton. We can talk about that, but I mean, the Current won the Shield, right? So how could we not be super excited about getting to watch them play again? Speaking of Claire Hutton, I'm not just trying to highlight the game I'm doing commentary on. I genuinely am excited. I'm excited for Bay FC and I'm excited for Denver. I'm also excited for Portland, and I'll say why here. For the same reasons we're disappointed in the head coaching hire for Portland, or for the opposite reasons, I'm excited. We don't like the head coaching hire for Portland. I love the head coaching hire for Bay FC. Impeccable hire. This woman has so much experience over in England, and she's bringing it here. This feels like a fresh start for Bay FC. And I loved the move that they made to get Claire Hutton, who, in my opinion, is extremely underrated and is probably one of the best midfielders in the NWSL. So I'm excited. I'm not necessarily sitting here and saying, hey, Bay FC are going to run over everybody. They're going to win. But what I am saying is that they're going to be fun and exciting to watch. They also signed Cristina Giarelli. Anybody who watched the World Cup or watched Italy in the Euros or wherever you can watch Italy, you know Giarelli and how prolific she is of a goal scorer. So I like the moves they made. I love Emma Coates in her first season as the head coach at Bay FC. So I think it's only up for Bay FC. They're going to be exciting. Denver and Boston, I'm just excited to see. It's always interesting to see how a first team comes together. And I like how Denver have signed. Portland, I say, despite not liking the head coach hire, we saw what they did last year amidst chaos. Like, imagine what they can do now, hopefully without the chaos. Hopefully. You never know.
In a weird, slightly sick, staring at an accident waiting to happen kind of way, I want to see what Chicago are going to do. Because Chicago were horrendous last season. Like, that was a bad season upon bad season. Like, you watched them and you're like, thank God the NWSL doesn't have relegation because you're in trouble. So they don't seem to have fixed that. So I want to see how they go ahead in a weird, perverse way.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. I feel like their off season was focused kind of on bolstering their defense, which was necessary. They gave up 54 goals last season. They kind of acquired like a blend of rookies and established players. They signed Michelle Alozzi to a 3-year contract. We'll see. Uh, I don't. Yeah, I agree. I'm interested. The big headline re-signing, I think, for Chicago is that they were able to keep players like Alyssa Nair and Sam Staub, which I think is really positive. So hopefully it's up from there.
It can't get any worse.
I'm excited to see how Angel City progress. I think they signed well. They got Ari Borges, they got Emily Sams, and I think with a disappointing season last year, disappointing finish, I think that they kind of refocused their efforts in the offseason on strengthening their depth, which is really important. And I think it will pay off in the long run. It might not start pretty, but I think it'll pay off in the long run for Angel City. Who else are we excited? What do we think's going to happen with San Diego?
Oh Lord. Is my honest answer.
Speaking of coaches who came over from the WSL.
Yeah. The honest answer is I don't know. They confuse me in a really annoying way because on paper they've got some amazing players and they should do better than they do. But they were so hit or miss last season. Like,
I mean, they finished 6th.
and that means nothing. That's halfway up the table. Like, that's the definition of hit or miss. So because I think on paper, if you look at the squad they've got, they should be doing much better. They should be much higher up the table. They should be challenging the Kansas Cities and the Orlandos and the Washington Spirits of the league much more intently than they are. They seem to be quite content at just getting into the playoffs. Yes, okay, it was 2 point places above, but that wasn't always going to be the case, and it did look a bit dicey for them for a little while, and they hadn't always got into the playoffs. So on paper, they should be up there further than they are, and I don't think Jonas is the man to get them there. I like my crazy predictions. I will put money on that he will be replaced halfway through the season because they will not have a great start to the season, and San Diego will replace him halfway through. Maybe only with an interim, but they will replace him halfway through.
Wow. That's massive.
Let's see. I might be right. It might be another Iceland, but we will see.
Things I forgot to mention. Corey Bethune got added to Kansas City. Like, we forget. I feel like that happened a while enough ago that I was shocked by it, and then I forgot to talk about it. Corey Bethune, let's not forget, I believe was Rookie of the Year despite being injured for like a third of the season, her rookie season. She had a great year last year. She's now part of Kansas City. The rich get richer. That's going to be really fun. breaking news that just dropped, by the way, an hour ago, Allie. Alyssa Melanson was just placed on the BFC season-ending injury list. Alyssa Melanson has become a really key part of the BFC back line, so that is really sad and disappointing and huge. I guess the last team I'll highlight as one that I'm really pumped to see, it's Racing Louisville. Because I think Bev Yanez has done an impeccable job with this team. They were like the darlings last year, and I think that they found a confidence and a style of play that worked so well, and the team hasn't changed all that much, and I just see them building on it. I think they're going to shock some people with how good they are.
Interesting. Yeah, because they're not one that's really talked about at the moment. They're really
No.
not talked about at the moment. So
They're flying under the radar, so they're a little sneaky. We didn't really touch on Orlando, Seattle, Houston, North Carolina, Utah. I feel like maybe we're just kind of like, we'll wait and see with all of them.
I'm very much in that camp. I'm very much at the moment. I have no major feelings on any of them, if I'm completely honest. I think some have made some good moves, some have made some all right moves. I do think we'll have more to say once we've actually seen them on the pitch and touch a football, is the honest answer, because at the moment they're sort of like, they could be great, they could be terrible, they could be mid-table. Who knows?
Orlando's the only team that I will be shocked if they're anything below the middle of the table. Washington have lost enough players that I can't say I'd be that surprised. They've had coaching changes. They've lost players. Like, there's only so much you can depend on Trinity Rodman. And that's not to disrespect the other players, but like I just mentioned that they traded away Croy Bethune.
I was going to say, Washington, like some of their, when the trades and the transfer window was in, I was shocked at some of the players that they let go. And I'm like, really?
Yeah. I mean, they're still pretty stacked, obviously. But Aubrey Kingsbury in the net. I mentioned Rodman. They still have Casey Kruger. How much longer will Casey Kruger play is maybe a question mark. Tara Rudd, obviously, fantastic. Andy Sullivan. There's like a lot of talent. Hal Hirschfeld, like their Gift Monday, they're not short on talent. Kawasi, I could keep going. Sophia Cantore, like it goes on and on and on. But we talk a lot about how depth is the reason a lot of these teams get deep in the season, and they have done away with some of that. With that being said, I would be shocked if they finished like below mid-table. It's going to be a fun one, Allie.
You're so excited it's back.
I'm so excited. Okay, final question. Pick one matchup. What are you watching? There's 8 games. If you have to only watch one, what are you watching?
One that we've not actually mentioned much about, which is Orlando versus Seattle.
Fun. It'll be really fun. That's become, because of how much they've played each other, it's just become really fun.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a fun one. It's become a bit of a rivalry because of how much they play each other. And as that's the first one out the gate for them, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go Orlando versus Seattle.
Without kind of crossing Bay FC Denver off the list for me, because that's what I'm most excited about. I think for me, it might be Spirit Thorns. I'm just so curious about both of them. It's the first game. I'm just excited to just sit and watch it and let the start of the NWSL season wash over me. That is it for us today. However, it's not just the NWSL season. The WSL returns this weekend, Allie.
Yes, for some teams. However, also, more excitingly, the Subway Cup final is also this weekend. That is between Manchester United. Sarah's laughing at me because she's like, you did not say that seriously.
Is it more excitingly? That's why I'm laughing.
It is, because West Ham can't lose because they were due to play Manchester United. Yeah, but it means that my Mother's Day, because it's Mother's Day in the UK, will be, I can actually spend it with my mother because it got moved. Good. And then she went, you're coming over now, aren't you? I'm like, yes, I am, because I was not before. Yes, so it is the Subway Cup final, which will be held in Bristol. It is the Manchester United versus Chelsea, but also the league does kick back off for that all-important title race.
I think United's going to take it.
Yeah, because it was close in the FA Cup game they had. It was really close. So, and Chelsea are missing more players in Asia Cup than Manchester United are.
All right. Well, I guess we will find out. That's it for this week here at the Women's Soccer Show. I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.